Welcome back to Mud Turtle Pottery. Today we're building a rocket kiln, and this was designed by Lisa Orr and Andrew Linderman. So these plans are available on Lisa Orr's site, and I've been fighting with an electric kiln, keeping it running. So I thought, well, maybe we should just go back to the ancestors and start playing with some fire, because I can always make fire and I don't have to rely on technology. So I bought some bricks from Larkin Refractory Solutions up in Georgia. Now I'm here in Central Florida. There was a place down in Tampa, but they didn't have the size bricks that I wanted. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of bring you through step by step, layer by layer, how I put this together. And eventually, I got an electric kiln shell, and it's like 30 inches wide. It's a pretty nice size one, and now it'll stack up. But I'll just show you step by step, and then we'll take you through the first firings and let you know how it goes. So stay tuned. In the plans, there are two types of jade tubes. There's a brick efficient and a firing efficient. So I'm going to do the firing efficient jade tube, and this is the first layer. So I'm going to lay out these bricks. I have more hard bricks than soft bricks. These plans are fairly flexible. It's kind of like, what do you have on hand? So I decided to go with some of these 2600 soft bricks and some medium duty hard bricks. This is layer one. I used all hard bricks for this. This is layer two. I also had to add a brick here on each side. I got that level one wrong, but now I got that corrected. Now there's supposed to be a kiln shelf where you're supposed to drill some holes. I don't really have that, so I've made like a wood spacer for now because I can put that in later. So it's going to bridge this little gap in front of us. This is level 3. A little airboat in the background. That's Florida for you. Now these little pieces here weren't in the plans, but I bought a couple extra chunks because I'd seen like gaps and things I'd just as soon fill in. And then I have a nice tile saw, the diamond blade, and it's wet, and keeps it from being dusty. So I have the tools and the ability just to go ahead and cut some bricks, so I'm doing that. This is layer 4. Now this layer was cliff hanging. I just took my tile saw and I cut some of these bricks into thirds and made some spacers just for better support. It says to fill this with kale wool or castable or something. I'm just going to cut some bricks and slide those down in there. I ordered a few extra. This way it'll be more squared up. I got a bunch of scrap metal all over the place. I'm going to chunk that up and I'll brace this up, and once I make sure I'm happy with everything. So, but these bricks cut really easy. If you have the tools, there wouldn't be any reason to leave it cliff hanging. This is layer 6, and when we start looking at the plans, these bricks start getting offset and there's not very even edges. So I'm modifying the design. The heat riser is 7 inches by 7 inches. You need to maintain that. So I'm just going to cut bricks, and I'm just going to make this look more clean, and I'll bind it together with some angle iron. This is going to be a permanent installation, so I'm not worried about speed. I'm not worried about using the least amount of bricks possible. And I bought extras so I could make sure that I could have some really high quality craftsmanship. Keep this thing together, keep it strapped up with some angle iron, and hopefully I'll get years and years and years out of it. And it has to deal with Florida winds, and we're just going to make it strong. Layers 7 through 11 look like this. The plans are set up so you don't have to cut brick, but I wanted this to be nice and squared off. This way I can put angle iron around the heat riser and bind it. Instead of using cinder blocks to prop up the kiln body and the chimney, I have a bunch of scrap metal, so I'm fabricating a stand. So right now I'm mocking up how it's going to set on here. There's a 7" by 7" hole that you cut into the bottom of the kiln, so I have that traced out. And then I'll position this bottom of the kiln where I want it, and then I'll bring in some more angle iron and support the bottom properly. And then I'm going to end up putting a shelf in here to hold wood that can dry. And I would keep this covered up when I'm not using it. And then I'll have a place to at least store some of the wood. Maybe the heat from the kiln will dry it out as we're firing. So I cut a 7" by 7" hole in the bottom of the kiln, which goes into the heat riser. And I got a 7" by 7" hole that's going to come out the back. I'm going to make some angle iron uprisers here. The plans say to cut back 1 inch around this hole, and that ring's not that wide to allow 1 inch removal without this whole piece of metal coming off. So when I get these angle iron uprisers, which will be taller than this, then I can just screw through the angle iron into the metal covering so that it doesn't just unspool. And then I'll insulate around here with kale wool or castable. I haven't decided yet. And I have a platform I've made to hold the chimney, and I'm going to reinforce that more. Eventually I'll do a completely brick chimney, and I don't know how much that's going to weigh, so I'll build it to be able to handle anything. So there'll be some more bracing that comes in here. And then I'll make a wood drying rack underneath here, and I'll make all that under cover so that I can just store wood there for the next firing. That kiln shell looked a lot bigger when it was sitting on the ground. Now that it's getting together, it doesn't look like it's as big as I thought it was going to be. So I'm cutting grooves for the dampener. This is kind of just a couple step offs here. I got a real fancy cut brick. Just cut that out with a little handheld drywall saw. Went through it like it was nothing. So it looks kind of complicated, but I don't think it's that bad. All right, first time loading the kiln. We're doing a test fire, doing a bisque. This is a cross draft, so I'm trying to force the flames up so that it'll work its way through the pots. I don't have very many kiln shelves, so I'm kind of working with what I got. I don't like this void here. I think the flame's going to just travel right through there, but we'll see how it goes. Wish me luck. I'm trying to get this fire going. I got a little cardboard in there, some sticks, some charcoal. Just trying to get the gentlest flame possible starting out. On the Bisque fire, it calls for 2 hours of running charcoal or twigs and paper. And you can see a little smoke, a little heat coming out the smokestack, but it's not like a freight train or nothing. But so far, so good. So I have a thermal imaging gun with the probe measuring the temperature. So I want to keep this under 200 degrees for 2 hours to dry out the wear. All right, we're at about 650. Running charcoal in this Bisque fire. There's no smoke, see heat coming out, but smokeless. It's climbing just on schedule on the template that they gave him on the wood-fired kiln site. And we got the safety manager here making sure everyone's safe. The Bisque fire went really well, so now I'm going to make a bracket so that this lid will hinge so junk doesn't fall in on the glaze when I'm sliding that lid on. So got another piece of square tubing that's kind of rounded off from one of these spools. So it's going to work out nice. It'll support the corner, and that'll give me something to build off of to make this hinge. Now I have a working hinge, some brackets. Keep that kiln shell from getting knocked off there for some reason as well. On this side, I'm gonna use the rest of this scrap metal to build a platform so I can just walk up here and load the kiln easy. I'll tie that in to this structure. I can use hurricane ties to anchor it down. I'm adding a little more bracing. I'm starting to build my little shelf for the wood stack. I have some stainless steel laying around, so I'm gonna just insulate this heat riser with some kale wool, and then I'll weld that stainless steel over it to keep the rain off of it. Now it's an expensive way to go, but I have the material laying around that I got for free. Adding some more structure. After doing my Bisque fire, I'm very confident that it'll get up to cone 6 temperatures, what I'm really looking for. So I'm comfortable with going ahead and buttoning some of this up. Now, if I ran into any problems as far as getting to cone 6, I could always, take this top part off and I can make that heat riser taller, or maybe you'd have to do the taller chimney. But I'm pretty confident it's going to go my way without having to do anything additional. Here's the completed insulated heat riser. Here's the bracing I have underneath the kiln, so there's not much of a span. This piece was lifting up a little bit in the firing, so I have some metal strapping that down to keep it tight. Got the safety manager complaining here. I had to cut some kiln shelves for this build. That notch is to allow that heat up through the heat riser into the wear chamber. And this cross draft design, the goal was to stair step the kiln shelves so the fire is forced to go up and through the wear in an even way. I didn't cut the top shelf though. I think I do need to take a couple slivers off of each side to encourage that fire to flow through. Now that the build's coming along, I made a hoop over the top to hang the lid from. I cut a little peephole in the side so that I can use my infrared thermal imaging gun to measure the temperature as the kiln is climbing. And it's a nice window to see cones, and maybe eventually I'll throw some soda in there once I coat the soft brick with something to keep them from getting tore up. Initially I tried to make a stopper on the hinge where I could just flip the lid up, but it was going to be too flimsy and break. So I added some structure to hold up the kiln body and the chimney. A little shelf from the wood. Got a little strap around the chimney to keep that from falling over. This first shelf, I loaded up bowls as a bag wall, and this temperature came out pretty good. The second shelf came out a little bit hot. The third shelf was just about perfect. And the top shelf, I didn't get enough heat up there. And when I did the Bisque fire, it was the opposite. The top was 300 degrees more than the bottom, so there's going to be an art to stacking this kiln. So here's the kiln after I fired it. We can see that top didn't fire to cone 5, so 5, 6, and 7 cones are all standing upright. Although somehow the glaze ended up melting. There is a little bit of wood ash on that plate to the right on that second to top shelf. So, not a bad first try. You can see how we can see those cones. That one was perfect. That's a good cone 6 firing on that mid-level shelf. So, unloading the kiln. Cone 7 here is lying flat, so this must have been cone 8 or 9 even. I'm not real sure. But the pots end up surviving and coming out pretty cool. The blue and white bowl had a little crazing, so that glaze isn't really agreeing with that clay body. So overall, I think I got a good solid build here. I got my wood stacked up in my shelf, and I can't wait to fire it off again. I'm building new product to stick in there, and so I can get it nice and packed tight. I really love how this bowl came out. This is one that was acting as the bag wall, so that fire was bouncing off that glaze and came up with some cool effects. This bowl had some wood ash gather in it. I'm really happy with how that one turned out. You have another bowl that had some wood ash in it. Yeah, you get some magical effects with this wood fire and just fire in general over the electric. This mug was a refire. I'd fired it off in the electric kiln. The glaze kind of bubbled in some spots, but this firing, it all corrected. Same story with this mug, except there was still some pinholes and pitting in the very bottom of the mug, so this is destined to get a little succulent plant and be put on my lemonade stand clearance rack. This was also a refire, but it fixed, so we got a nice little soup bowl. I'm sure someone's going to be loving that one. Little tiny vase, refire. The glaze corrected on it. Got some really neat color in it with that fire. A lot more dynamic than with the electric kiln. So this one had a little bit of bubbling on the glaze on the outside, but other than that, it was good and functional. I think it'll be a nice bowl for somebody's salad. And we got here are all the different cones. That was middle shelf. That one was the bottom shelf. That one was the third from the top. So there's an art form to stacking this. I'm gonna have to iron that out and figure it out. I've seen that in these videos I've watched. That top level didn't get to where it wanted. This bowl is beautiful. I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with this one too. I really like how the glaze interacted with the fire. With that bowl, that was also on the bag wall. Now the plates came out a little bit rough. I think we'll have to refire them. The wood ash gathering on that one kind of reminds me of mold, so I'm not happy with that particular plate. But this is the first plate set I've ever thrown, and I didn't really have any cracks or any problems with it, so I'm encouraged with that. I'll probably put these back in the electric kiln for a second fire and see if it smooths out a little bit. But all in all, I mean, this kiln didn't use a lot of fire. It took me about 8 hours to fire it off, and I wasn't really pushing it hard. I'm just trying to do a slow ramp and be patient. You know, usually patience is good in pottery, although I think I could fire it off a little faster next time. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And I want to give a special thanks to Lisa Orr and her team for putting out these plans for this kiln. It's been a big help to me. I really love it. The plans have worked out perfectly. The kiln worked as it should. This thing doesn't use much wood. It doesn't make much smoke. And hey, I'm making some cool work, and I'm very excited about that. Now, if you want to see some more videos like this, I'm going to make more pottery related videos. Now, I'm kind of an intermediate to a newbie, so I might not be an expert, but I'm not afraid to try things. So you can learn with me, or maybe I'm just entertaining you, watch me fumble around. But hey, if you like any of this work, I got a website, legacycraftsman.com. We have a mud turtle pottery section. I got a couple different brands in this business. So hey, you can support us by checking out our website and ordering some pots. You can watch the video, you can like, subscribe, but I appreciate you taking your time to watch me.